Hello, everybody. Just want to make sure everyone can see me, that I'm live officially on the YouTube. All right, I think that's good. Hi, everybody. As you can see, I am missing my co-host. I'm not exactly sure what's going on. I've reached out to Crystal, but I have not heard back, so I hope everything's okay. But in the meantime, I guess I'm just going to start on my own, and when Crystal arrives, I'll add her in. So for today, we are going to be talking about damaged dukes in particular. Oh, hi.
Yeah, always cutting it a little close. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I figured you were running behind, so I just add you in when you showed up. So hello, everybody. This is Crystal, my lovely co-host. Crystal, tell the people where to find you, a little bit about yourself.
Hello, my name is Crystal. I have a YouTube channel and I'm on all of the other socials under Crystal's Bookish Life, and I'll pop up if you look for my name there. I read romance pretty much almost exclusively, and I've had my YouTube channel for about 2 years, and I had a bookstagram for a long time before that where I read like fantasy and YA and all that other stuff too. So
Okay, very cool. Yay! Well, I asked Crystal to come on this episode in particular because I was thinking of all the people I know from BookTube. I feel like Crystal might be an expert for this in particular. We're both fans of damaged dukes, scarred dukes, whatever you want to call them. We love them. We want to kiss them better, all of that jazz. So I figured, hey, let's talk about them. Let's talk about our favorite scarred or damaged dukes. I picked a bunch of books for recommendations, and I know you probably have way more than me, but that's cool. That's what I'm here for. I want recommendations too.
I picked some that are hopefully a little more obscure and then some that are very typical favorites. So it'll be fun to see what kind of crossover we have.
Yay. I'm sure there'll be some crossover. We'll see.
Yeah.
Just because everyone always wants to know, here is the wine I'm drinking today. And it's a Vaqueras, and that is, I know it sounds Spanish, but it's from France. It's a very particular little region in the Rhone Valley. This one in particular is Grenache Mourvedre combo, like most things in Rhone. Those are all the combos. They left out Syrah. Usually there's 3 wines. I talk about wine a little bit in the beginning of these.
You're good.
So you'll hear the term GSM a lot when you hear about Rhone wines, and that's Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre. Those are the 3 main wines that it blends out of for the Rhone Valley. This one is just a GM. There's no Syrah in it, so I was like, oh, what's this going to be like? Because Syrah usually adds that like spicy tone, and I'm like, this is nice though. It's fun. Anyways, everyone wants to know what I'm drinking, so I figured there you go.
I don't drink alcohol, but I do, of course, have Diet Coke, which I am almost always drinking. So that's my beverage of choice for today.
Nice. Let's see. Oh, really? I didn't hear about that. Thank you for telling us. I'm very interested. Do you know the title of it? If so, put it in the comments. I'll let everyone know the title.
I've been hearing about that too, but I can't remember what it is.
Yeah, this is my first time hearing of it. I always get the best recommendations during wine chats. Like the last one I did was about it didn't start off about food-based romance, but it ended up to be about food-based romance because there's so many rom-coms that involve food.
Yeah.
You know? So it ended up being a whole discussion on it, and I got told about Sweet Hands by N.G. Peltier, and I haven't read it yet, but I'm going to be reading it in April, just because there it is. A Lady for
That's
a Duke.
right, A Lady for a Duke, yeah. I think that will be really good. I can't remember when that comes out, but...
Very cool. I'm going to write it down. So, Crystal, why don't you go first since you're the guest?
Okay.
And give us a recommendation.
A recommendation. Okay. This is, I think, pretty widely loved, but I think it is a perfect example of a damaged Duke historical romance, and it's The Beast of Beswick by Amalie Howard. Is that on your list too?
It's on top of my pile.
Yeah, I love this book so much. I think it's such a great grumpy, damaged Duke, and he just is so, like, the way that he throws the plates around in the beginning and everything, I feel like it's a perfect Beauty and the Beast retelling too. I love it so much. It's so good.
It took all the fun parts of Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
And put it in, because, like, here's the thing. I got so sick of Beauty and the Beast retellings. Like, so sick of them. Like, I couldn't even look at one of them. And this one got, like, all the fun parts. And, like, left out the parts that are just like, oh, gosh, we get it. Don't kidnap people. Like,
you know? That's how I'm starting to feel about Hades and Persephone retellings, is I'm like, I'm over it. I'm done.
Oh, my gosh. You have to write it right. Or, like, Persephone has some agency over the situation, and then I can, like, go with it. But I'm like, oh, gosh, we're over kidnapping fantasies, are we not?
Totally. No, but I think that one of the reasons I really loved this was because of the heroine, like the way that she just, in a typical Beauty and the Beast fashion, like she just stands up and she's going to go and make sure her little sister is protected. And she's like, I'll marry this very damaged beast of a man, and we'll see if that'll work. Like, I just loved it. I thought it was such a good time. Mm-hmm. And I actually only just read that this year. Like, it's been languishing on my TBR forever because everyone had talked about it and read it, but it was as good as everyone had said.
It's so fun. And then, have you read the sequel?
I haven't yet. I haven't read it yet.
So here's the deal. That one, the main guy's name, I think his name is Winter or something. It's a weird name, but like, he kind of sucks. But the sister is the main character, and she is incredible. Basically, she kind of starts Regency era Cosmopolitan magazine.
Oh, that's very fun.
Basically, he marries her, they kind of consummate things, and he just takes off. And, like, he never, like, hasn't seen her in years, and she hangs out at his estate. And then she's like, you know what? I'm tired of this. Like, I read a sex column, and no one's banging me. So she goes back to town. She's like, I have lemons, and I'm going to drown him in lemonade. She's so feisty. I love her.
See, I was wanting to read that one. Like, I've read her newer series, the Princess Stakes one, that series, but I'd been kind of holding off on this. But I'd heard mixed reviews about the second one, but that is very encouraging to me that you loved it so much, because
the heroine's doing the heavy lifting.
I kind of love that, honestly. Like, I love a heroine-driven one.
Sorry, the mailman's here.
You might be hearing mine pretty soon too.
Yeah, they're mortal enemies. Like, it's so funny because, like, if I'm in the room, like, I'll hear him going, like, the mailman's muttering to himself, and then my dog's name is Batman, and he mutters to himself in front of the door. Like, they're just his enemies. So yeah, I think the mixed reviews is, like, the romantic male lead. It's like, girl, you could do better, because she is so cool and he's stuck.
Oh no.
I think that's the problem. Like, she's so cool. Like, she's an expert markswoman. She can fire guns. She can ride horseback. She can do, like, everything. Like, she's good. He sucks. He's just a whiny little brat.
Does he grow on you though towards the end? Like.
He's just the worst. Like, if he just sat down and, like, talked to another human for, like, 10 minutes, he would have zero of the problems he has in life. Like, he just needs to not be an ass, and, like, he just put into it. Look at you. Sorry. I got book mail.
Oh, fun!
My boyfriend just brought it to me. What did I get? Let's see what I got. Never a dull moment here on the wine chat. Let's see. Okay. Oh, it's from Tor Books. Okay. I got this one. It's by Ursula Le Guin.
Ooh, that's beautiful.
I know. They're re-releasing some of these old books as Tor Essentials, and they said, hey, do you want it? And I'm like, yes, I do.
I just barely got, I think, the first Earthsea book. Like, I've never read her before, honestly. But I've been very intrigued to go back to her old original ones. So
yeah. Let's see. Crystal, you do have fabulous hair. I was thinking
Thank
that too.
You very much.
Your color is so vibrant all the time. It's hard to maintain. So, like, props. Like, I'm like, yeah, I can't keep my hair that bright.
It's definitely a challenge. I just freshened it up like last week, so it still looks fairly bright right now.
Yeah, it looks great.
Thank you.
Hi, Charles. I think we both know Charles.
Charles!
He's the best. Charles, I need to have you come on a show. Like, it's crazy that you haven't been on one yet. I'll email you and we'll go from there. Oh, you're so sweet. Okay, so you did your first one. We kind of matched. Let's see if
We did.
We
were matchers.
Because this one I feel like it's been going around and a lot of people like, but I picked my darling Duke.
Oh, excellent choice. Yes.
So fun. So I always forget everyone's name. So Miss Katherine Danvers and the Duke of Thornton. So this one, you read it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for everyone else in the chat who has not read it, so we have our girl Katherine, right? She's like, hey, I need to like make good matches for my sisters. We're kind of poor. We don't have good dowries. I got it. I'm just gonna tell everybody I'm engaged to the Duke of Thornton because no one's seen him in years. No one knows. Like, who's gonna say I'm not? They can't prove it. So she just says it, and then like it kind of gets away from her, and then it does all the papers and everything, and eventually the Duke of Thornton, Alexander, he's like, I am affianced to this lady, and I don't know her. And wouldn't you know, he shows up in town. Things go from there. Again, another kind of Beauty and the Beast retelling, but another really cool thing about this book is the disability representation, I would say, because Alex was in a fire as a like kind of a teenager, and he saved his sister, but he had to jump out like a upper story window. So in the fall, he got burned and like had all these scars from the glass. And also, it was a partial like spinal severing. I know there's a condition for that, but I forget what the name of it is. So he has a lot of mobility issues where his spinal cord wasn't completely severed, so he still has like sensation. He can still walk sometimes, but it's kind of spotty, essentially. So it is a bit of a Beauty and the Beast story. I feel like Katherine has a lot more agency considering she's like, oh, I'm engaged to him. Oh, he's here now. I guess I'm engaged to him. She kind of put herself in that situation rather than something being done to her. So again, Beauty and the Beast, but I liked it. So I think it's really fun. Again, Katherine's a dope heroine. This series is fantastic.
It's so good. Stacy Reid is amazing. She's one of my favorite historical romance authors, and she has like some novellas too that I don't know, you've probably read, that are most of them are independently published, and they are very steamy, but like her catnip is absolutely like damaged heroes. The one I read about was like a Russian guy. He was extremely like traumatized and never wanted to be physically intimate with the heroine that he loved, but oh my gosh, it was just so beautiful. I think it was called His Royal Conquest or something like that. The Royal Conquest. Anyway,
I haven't read as much as her back cat series as I would like to have.
And she's got so many too. Like I was really surprised to see how many she has.
Yeah, it was like I just heard about her because what's the second book of this called again?
His Wicked Marquess, is that
yes.
right?
Yeah, Wicked Marquess. Because the publisher is like, hey, do you want this? And I was like, okay. And then I was like, oh my gosh, where has this author been my whole life? And then I went back and like read the other ones. So love it. And like I reached back out to the publisher. I was like, if you have anything else, I will read it. Please send it to me. Put me on whatever list that needs to be. And then they did. They sent me the third book of the series. And I was like,
yeah.
I just geeked out enough that they like sent me.
Have you read that one, her newest?
I haven't, because I suck at physical reading unless I have an audio component, and the audiobook comes out soon.
Yeah.
So as soon as that comes out, I'm going to be hopping on that. I meant to read it, and I can't sit down and physically read something because I need to be moving around. I am chaotic.
I can relate to that so much. That's exactly how I am. I definitely prefer audiobooks. I did read her newest one, because I had an e-arc of it from NetGalley, and it was like I read it like at the tail end of last year, and I was like, well, this is going straight to my favorites, top of the favorites list. It was so good.
Yeah.
I love it so much. Someone said that I've heard most people hate the audio for My Darling Duke. I've heard that a lot about that narrator.
It didn't bother me. I don't know.
It didn't bother me either. I think that narrator has a really like a breathy quality to her voice, which seems very dramatic, but like I really love. She narrates some other books that I'm going to mention too. So
Okay. I never pay attention who's narrating, and I read so many audiobooks. I should. Oh yes, thank you. That's also
yeah,
a key
that's right.
there. He's like, I can't have children. I'm impotent, and then what do you know? Like, oh my gosh, my dick works. It's one of those like, oh, your vagina is magic, and I love that. Go her. Have a
Yeah,
magic.
absolutely.
I love it.
I didn't know she had a PNR series, Charles. Oh my gosh, I am.
I didn't either. I mean, she's still kind of a new to me author, but like love her so much.
Yeah, she's amazing,
So I
amazing.
think she lives in Jamaica too, and I wish she would write something like Jamaican based. I think that'd be really
Yes,
cool.
that would be amazing.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Recommend me things.
speaking of Jamaica, I'm gonna go with The Duke by Katherine Ashe.
Okay.
She was a pretty prolific writer. Have you read her before? I'm not sure if
I haven't.
she, her style of writing is a lot different than like the historicals that are written today. Like it has a much more like an epic feel where she's telling like this story that spans a great amount of years. Like there's some time jumps and things like that. I really love this one because it has a heroine she's going to be married off to a priest, and so her and the priest, they go to Jamaica for like a mission trip, and while she's there, there's this tropical storm that comes through, and she ends up finding herself trapped in the basement with the Duke, who wasn't the Duke at the time. He was like a naval captain. They end up trapped in the cellar, and they bond and have this incredibly romantic moment where they both think that neither one of them are going to survive, but they don't like do anything scandalous. They just like hold hands in the dark. And it was one of those moments that was like so underrated. Like you don't get that enough. It's not like bodice ripping, corset ripping. It was just like so sweet. And then they're torn apart. And the whole rest of the book is them trying to find their way back to each other. And it was just absolutely beautiful. The Duke is damaged in a way, mostly just because he is trying to put together this mystery of who is like kidnapping women and abusing them and selling them. So he has a personal interest in that because of his family, and that's where the damage part comes in. But it was mostly just such a grand epic romance that felt very like period type of drama movie. I just loved it. I thought it was fantastic. So good.
Nice. I love it. So he was a naval captain, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, because actually I was just reading a bunch of discourse this morning about, Bridgerton season 2.
Yeah.
Because, you're taking roles that are obviously written for white characters and just putting brown people in the roles, and how does that affect it? Because it's like you're adding nothing about their cultural representation in here, you're just putting a brown person in the role. So there is discourse there to be had, but the other part of it was just like there's a lot of romances written in the colonial era with like colonizers and stuff, and like people who own the plantation are like the romantic lead, and it's like, should they be? So,
yeah, no, there is definitely an aspect of, I mean, they go there for a mission trip, her and this man that she thinks she was going to marry, but the hero, he was a naval captain, and then he inherits his land, and the main romance takes place in England, so he's not a colonizer in that way, but that is just a tiny aspect of the beginning part of this when they're in Jamaica. But
yeah, I mean, it's an interesting conversation to be had, but that's like a whole longer conversation, and we're just talking about damaged dukes today.
yeah.
Yeah. So I have this one. I'm not sure. I think it counts because he's not technically a duke, and he's not technically scarred, but like I want to count it.
Do it. It's your show.
There's no rules. I can do what I want.
Absolutely.
Lord of
Scoundrels.
Yes. Chase. Technically,
Excellent
he's a quest, and he's not necessarily scarred. He's just like unattractive.
He has some emotional damage for sure, though.
There's emotional scars. He has feeling pain.
Yeah.
But oh my gosh, this one was recommended to me, I think from a subscriber, and I was like, all right, I'm reading it. And I did, and I was like, this book is incredible. I have never read like two people who are just diabolical to each other the whole book. Like spoiler, guys, at one point he does something really messed up to the heroine. What are their names? Sebastian and Jessica. So Sebastian, he does something messed up to Jessica, right? And he's like, what are you gonna do? Shoot me? You know what she does? She comes up and shoots him. The heroine literally bang bang shoots the hero, and then they get married.
That honestly is one of the best scenes I have read in a historical before.
Right? Like, it's so badass.
It's so common for the ruination of the heroine to be the thing. And that's what happens is she gets ruined and she's like, oh, yeah, you're going to ruin me? Okay, I'll just shoot you. And I'm just like, that's the kind of revenge that I'm here for.
I'm going to shoot you, and then I'm going to sue you for emotional damages. Yes. And she gets like the one like really woke feminist lawyer, and he's like, well, you've ruined her prospects. You have to pay her this much per year because she's not going to get married. So you have to pay her as much money as she would get if she was married. He's like, well, I'm not. I should just marry her then. You're paying her anyway, and then they get together. So it's like two very diabolical people that like, and she's just like, God damn it, why do I like you? You suck. And it's just like, I'm angry that I like you emotions. And it's great. I loved it.
That book is so good. It's so interesting to me. That book was recommended to me. Like, everyone recommends that book. It's a classic, and it's a classic for a reason. It's fantastic. But that book literally took me like 3 tries to get into the story. And I don't know if I was just in like a mood where I like was having a hard time like connecting with her writing, because she does have a really unique like writing style where she will kind of jump around in perspectives from every scene. And I found that to be like a little jarring. But once I was able to like get past that, I was like totally hooked. And yeah, that's a favorite book of mine. I love it. It's so freaking good.
Yeah, she is like that. It's funny because like I read other stuff by Loretta Chase because I love this one so much, and then I realized no, I just love this one. Like I didn't like the other book, So I'm feeling like it might be lightning in a bottle for that one.
I think you're right. I've only read one other book by her, and it was so disappointing that I was like, I think I'm gonna wait before I read more of hers, because honestly, nothing in my mind can compare to Lord of Scoundrels. That's a fantastic book.
Yeah, like I read Mr. Impossible by her, and that's supposed to be like Sexy the Mummy, 1999.
Yes. Did you like it?
There's like, it's fine. Like I kind of like that the main guy is obviously just okay, here you go. It has like a total brat tamer kink in there without having a brat tamer kink. Because he's just like, I did misbehave. What are you going to do about it? The boy is a bottom, and I like that aspect. But it is set in Egypt in colonial era times. There's a certain there's like a lot of white savior stuff going on here that I'm like, that doesn't taste good.
Yep.
So it was like there's some parts that are fun, and then other parts that are weird. Like they bang in a mummy tomb, like. I've never seen that happen before, so that's
that I have not either.
And they're talking about how it smells like mummies, and they're like, I'm like, impressed if you got hard.
Not as much of an obstacle as one would think, huh? Oh, that's funny. Okay, so. Okay, go. So these two, I'm doing a 2-for-1 because the Duke isn't technically in the first book, but they're so connected that I am sharing Elisa Braden's. So the first book is not this one, it's this one. It's mirrored, I'm not used to that. So this is her Rescued from Ruin series. This is the first book, The Madness of Viscount Atherbourne. And this book is basically about the Viscount whose sister killed herself. And he believes that it is the Duke's brother who was responsible for her killing herself. And so he makes a point to go and get revenge on that brother. And his theory is he's going to go and woo or ruin his sister, marry her, and then just abandon her and like keep her away from her brother, like for the rest of their life. Of course, they end up falling in love. It's very, very messy, but it was just such an interesting take on all of this, and obviously it definitely would have some trigger warnings for suicide. So the second book is The Truth About Cads and Dukes, and this is actually the Duke who was the brother in the first book. So he's trying to keep his family together. He's got a sister and a brother who is basically a rapscallion, a big, huge troublemaker. and his brother is the reason why this plus-size heroine ended up being ruined, and he's not going to step up to the plate and marry her, so the Duke decides to do that. So these books are super fun. They're indie published. They're definitely more unique than like a typical historical romance, but I felt like they really went into some very emotional topics with different types of family dynamics than you typically see. So they were really fun.
Yeah. I mean, whenever you have those, you have to be like those messy books where you're just like, do I want to cause a bodily harm?
Yeah.
He's got to redeem some stuff,
It's interesting to me. I really like the first 3 books in that series. The third one is the brother who started all of the mess that everything had happened with. But it felt like it was such a messy, emotional situation. And it was like so convoluted, like everything was crisscrossing. And I was just like, how is this even going to work out? But it was fantastic. So the whole premise of that series is basically every time a heroine gets ruined, and how is she going to be happily ever after with the guy who ruined her? So, or not.
Or not.
Some other guy who decides to marry her.
There you go. Okay, so again, I am stretching my Duke rule with this, but he is a laird, and he's like the top laird. So it's Highlander. I don't know if they have Dukes out there, but whatever. I have Highlander's Promise.
Oh, she has the best covers. Oh my gosh.
They're not trying to be anything else than what they are.
Absolutely.
Although the setbacks are so tame, right?
That's the thing that just kills me about those. Yeah.
Right. It's always like, oh, there's a lovely field, like. It's so odd that they just pick like, oh yeah, setback, it's just the ocean. But all the smuts on the front. So Ollie Buchanan, he is like the laird of the Buchanan clan. So I guess kind of a dukey kind of thing. But he was in war. He had scars and stuff. And he's like, oh, I am a monster, blah, one of those type of things. Feel bad for me, but like also kind of just like wounded puppy. You just want to pet him on the head and say it's going to be okay. One of those situations. And then he meets this woman, Jeddah, right? And Jeddah has amnesia, so she doesn't know any better. So she's just like, oh yeah, you're just like this guy. And he's like, you're not bothered that I have scars? And she's like, am I supposed to be? And he's like, no, you don't. You're fine. So it's like kind of one of those. And she has like a loss of memory for like an uncomfortable amount of time. But the thing with Lynsay Sands' book is just like, you're not reading them because it's going to be like a particularly unique story. Mm-hmm. You're reading them because they're fun. They're all kind of the same plot, but it's okay. It's like a bag of mini Snickers. Every Snickers stays the same, but it's okay because you like mini Snickers.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Ollie Buchanan, scarred, amnesia, very dramatic. Love.
I've read a couple of books in that series, but the one I remember most is Rory's book. Rory?
He's a doctor, right? Yeah.
Okay, then maybe it was the one right before him, because I read Rory's book and then the one...
Oh, the one that he gets mistaken as Rory?
Yes, that one.
Yes. Yeah, and he's kind of a himbo, but like really sweet. Love.
Yes, I loved that.
Girl, like when they had their first kiss, that was insane. It was literally like rom-com stupidity. He's trying to pick her up out of a bed, a sick bed that her dad is in, and they go, whoa, and they fall back on the bed with him on top, and they just start making out. And I'm like, you're laying next to your sick dad. What is happening? And they're all really surprised when the dad figured out they like each other. And they're like, how did you know? He's like, you made out on top of me. Like, that was my first death.
That was a fun book. I liked that one a lot. And then I have read some of her PNR stuff. Have you read that from her before?
I have read the first book of the Argeno series. Although, like, I haven't read any more because, like, the vampire, like, mythos they're using bothers me.
Oh, yeah?
Because they drink through their teeth like straws.
Yeah.
How does this work? Like, you can't make it make sense, and I won't believe you if you do.
Oh, that's funny. I think I started that book. I mean, there's like 30 plus books in that series, right? There are so many. And I think I
Yeah,
read Dark Angel or something, one of the later ones, and I thought it was a fun time. It definitely, like, you definitely have to suspend your disbelief and be like, okay, we're just gonna roll with it like a Buffy the Vampire Slayer type of. It was fun.
Yeah, I love Buffy. But yeah, that's what it like. It has some funny bits. Like she's trying to eat like a guy in a bathroom stall, so she has to pick him up like a baby, and she's trying to eat, and then someone keeps trying to talk to her, so she has to keep putting her food down and talking in a bathroom stall. So like it had some like quirky things that were fun. But yeah. Also, hey, this would be a fun one.
That would
Yes,
be very fun.
there's I feel like there's a lot more in contemporary than there is in historical, but there are some good historicals with
There
body positivity.
are definitely some good plus size historical heroines, but I'm trying to think of if I have ever read a plus size hero in a historical.
I don't think I've read
I
one in historical.
think that.
Frankly, I don't even get them very much in contemporary. I can only think of one, and that was Zenny by Rebecca Weatherspoon. But that book is also quite spicy.
I've heard. I haven't read it yet. But I've heard that
there is something that rhymes with legging in it.
Yes, that's the one. That's the one I've heard of.
It's quite a bit, but like it's very funny though. Like I tabbed it. I never tab things unless it's like really a good line, and I was like, I tabbed some stuff. It's Zenny. It had some funny bits.
So going along with plus size heroines, this one is not a plus size heroine, but the second book in this series does have a plus size heroine, and it's one of my favorite historicals. And I was trying to figure out how to recommend that one today, but you can't recommend that hero as a damaged duke. However, you can this one.
Yeah, because he's actually a duke.
Yeah, because he's actually a duke, and all of the heroes in the series come with some emotional damage, and I think that he probably Ewan, right? Is that his name? Yeah, Ewan has probably the most emotional damage, and I feel like a lot of that is stuff that he has caused himself. Like he is such an angst puppy. Like he creates so much of the angst that he goes through.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because a lot of the times he does that because he thinks that it's for the betterment of the people that he loves, when really it's just creating more angst for everyone. But anyway, I digress. This is the last book in the Bare Knuckle Bastard series. Sarah MacLean is a favorite author of mine. I think that she just hits everything that I'm looking for in a historical. And this one is about the Duke. It's basically four kids. They were all supposedly sons of this Duke, or daughter. There's one that's a daughter. Some of them were by blow, some of them were not like legitimate, but the only one that was is the daughter. So when they're all young and children, plot events happen where they're torn apart, and instead of the daughter being raised up to be the heir, it is the boy, Ewan, who is everyone is led to believe is the actual legitimate heir. So in this book, we're seeing all of those choices come to fruition, and the hero's grovel in this is exceptionally epic. If you really love a character arc, like this series is fantastic, and if you love a good grovel and a very strong heroine, like this is excellent. Also, this one is super steamy.
It's quite the grovel. Like he literally burns a house.
yes, like
that's a grovel.
Like you can say what you want about heroes groveling. Like I don't know of anybody who does it more than you. And like this man burned.
He is so dramatic. He's extra.
Very extra.
Both of them are so drama. Both of them. They live for the drama.
They do. They absolutely do. Which, I mean, honestly, I feel like that can be something that I either love or I don't. But for whatever reason, I just eat it up in Sarah MacLean's. I feel like she leans into that drama very heavily, and I'm like, I'm here for it. I love it. Give it to me.
That's the thing. Yeah. You know, I read it for book club way back in the day, that book. And like, it didn't go over well because like no one liked it in the chat when we were having a live show. And then like I was the only one who was just like, guys, it's not supposed to be good. It's supposed to be drama. Like, are you looking for the drama? Are you just going, oh, what? He burned down a house? Like you just have to like forget that it's not supposed to be good. You're just supposed to like live for the drama. That's the point of the book.
Yeah, that book is honestly my least favorite of that series. It's not even a top favorite of mine of Sarah's, but like you don't get much more damaged and dramatic than Ewan.
So dramatic.
So dramatic.
Have you read Bombshell?
Yes, I have.
I loved it.
I did too.
So much. I have pre-ordered the next book of that series. I
did too.
It's so good. Oh my gosh. It
was so good. I love how like connected all of her books are. Like I just love that. So I loved Bombshell. It was such an incredibly like the pining of that hero, like the way that he pined for Cecily, like oh my gosh, I will never forget it. It's so good.
Also, great heroines. I love them. They get into a lot of capes. They're trying to hide a body and steal another one. They blow up a prison. They do a lot of cool stuff. Like they are awesome. I didn't even care that like book one was very telling about who the pairings are going to be for the other girls. Like it's remarkably obvious. Don't even care. I want to see how that happens.
I know.
I want to see that. Like the very shy one and the Duke guy, which I think is the next book coming out, Heartbreaker.
Yeah.
Love it. Want that so bad. Give it to me now.
Me too. I want it so badly.
So bad. Gotta wait till August. Okay, so I have another twofer because you had a twofer. This is my twofer. They're probably on your list as well.
Oh yes, see, I didn't even include those because I figured you would. Yes.
You knew I'm gonna pick them.
Yeah.
So okay, so let's start. This one came up first chronologically. So Romancing the Duke by Tessa Dare. This one has Regency era LARPing in it. I know, crazy. And War Hero kind of, no, this isn't the War Hero. This is the duel. I get these two dukes like mixed up because they're very similar characters. But anyway, so this guy, he was going to marry this girl who didn't want to marry him. So he's like, hey, I'll fight a duel. And then he fights a duel and he goes blind. Like, because there's like a backfire of the gun or something. And then this girl shows up at his castle and she's like, oh, no, I live here. I just inherited this castle. He's like, but like I live here. She's like, that's not my problem. And they end up being like, odd couple roommates. And then she kind of figures out that he's blind eventually. Like he's very good at like covering up his blindness. And I don't know. I just like them together very much. Also, you have the troop of LARPers who come in and help, and it's so zany. I love it. There's a whole joke about a weasel that I laugh about probably once a month. I just think of the weasel line and just laugh. Of course, everyone knows I'm a Tessa Dare stan forever. And then this was the first like real historical romance I ever read. And I'm like, way to start on top. Am I right?
Absolutely.
And I read Duchess Deal, love it. War Hero Duke, he, again, a backfire of like a cannon, I think. And he's all like burned and like pitted and stuff. So he has a lot of scars. And he's like, well, I need to find a wife. And wouldn't you know, at that exact moment, a woman walks in wearing a wedding dress saying, hey, you need to pay me for this. So he's like, wow, this is great timing. Let's get married. And then you have very much a awkward friends to lovers kind of situation, a lot of scheming house like servants kind of pushing them together, making situations where they're thrust upon each other, emphasis on the thrust. And I'm just obsessed. I love it so much. I just reread it in January, loved it as much the second time. Also Regency era Batman.
Oh, absolutely. I forget
Regency era Batman. Yes.
Yes. How could I forget that? Yeah.
Love it so much. And of course, yes, the Queen would be mentioned, obviously.
Yeah. That is such that honestly, I still think that is just a perfect historical romance. The Duchess deal is just perfect. There's honestly, if you don't like the Duchess deal, like I don't know if we can be friends.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I got my friend, Leanna from Leanna's library, and like Leanna doesn't like romance. Like Leanna likes like grimdark fantasy. You know what? Leanna likes this series. She likes all 3 books in it. Like it is transcendent. It's so good. It's so funny. It's so delightful. I love it. It's steamy. It has everything you want. Also, I saw this question. I think you would be more. I've read some. I think you've probably read more, Sarah MacLean. What's like a good book you'd recommend starting off?
Well, I think it kind of depends on what you want from a historical. I feel like Sarah's newer books have a very much a modern feel, where they almost feel like they could be set in a modern setting. And I know that is kind of a turnoff for some historical romance readers who want it to feel more like authentic and accurate. So if you like, I would say if you like contemporary romances, I would start with her Bare Knuckle Bastard series, like Wicked and the Wallflower, I think is an excellent place to start. But if you want more of like an old-fashioned historical, I would start with like her debut, 9 Rules to Break When Romancing a Rake, is fantastic. And I feel like that's more of like a classic historical. I prefer her newer stuff, but I know a lot of people really like her older stuff too. So
I like
that's
her
my
newer
suggestion.
stuff.
Yeah.
And I know Angelari, love her. She's a subscriber. I love talking to her every chat. And knowing you, I think the newer stuff would work better. I think, especially Bombshell, it's got a lady detective crew whose like goal is to take down the patriarchy, and then they blow up stuff. Like, it's got a lot of stuff going on. I recommend it. I think it's really fun.
It's very fun. I loved it. I read an arc of that one too, and I was like, this is just fantastic. It was so good. That one took me a little while to get into. It felt like there was a lot of like sort of almost world building.
Yeah, info dumping a little bit in the beginning.
Which I wasn't really used to. I don't feel like she's done that in any of her other books before this one. But it makes sense because she is sort of building this other universe. But I still loved it. It was fantastic. I forgave her for that.
It's so fun. I can't wait for it. We both have it pre-ordered. Oh my gosh, let's both read it.
I know. We need to
about it.
Sure.
Okay, what else do you have? What else recommendations do you have?
All right, I have Devil in Winter, Lisa Kleypas. So he is eventually the Duke. I think that he is he a Marquess? A Viscount. He's a Viscount in this one. So this I feel like is I don't know that he's necessarily damaged. He's not damaged physically, but he is definitely having some emotional damage. And he is the epitome of a rake and sort of like a villainous hero. And that's one reason why I love him so much, is because you get to see his really sort of evil beginnings in all of the books in this series. This is the last book in this. No, this is the 3rd book in the series. There's one more after this. So I do feel like you probably need to read these in order because you see all of this sort of terrible evil things that he does, but then you get to see him really melt for the heroine, who is also, she's the wallflower, and she's sort of been always on the sidelines and not really speaking up for herself. But then in this book, she's like ready to take her future into her own hands, and she's going to just go and marry this guy. And it was just fantastic. I think that it's a classic for a reason, and it's just fabulous. I think that's one of Lisa's best books, but I don't feel like you get that unless you read the whole series, to see his character arc.
Yeah, like I know that's a fan favorite, and I've read only that book. I didn't read the book before it. I'm kind of okay with that though, because I didn't like the hero. I have the unpopular opinion. Yeah. It's like, way to do the least. Oh no, you didn't let someone drown. Wow, such a hero. It's like he's an asshole all the rest of the time. But I get why people like it. I don't think it's poorly written. I don't think it's poorly plotted. It's just like a vibe I wasn't into. I don't know. I'm just such a top. I like cinnamon rolls.
And I mean, he's definitely not. And lots of people don't like him, but I was not sold on him, honestly. Like, I read the first 2 books and I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna feel about this guy. And then that book won me over. But also, like, have you read her Ravenel series at all?
I haven't. Because, like, I've read other stuff by Lisa Kleypas, and I've never liked her male leads. So I'm just like, I don't think I'm going to like them overall. So I like got rid of all my Lisa Kleypas stuff. I know.
That's fine. Some people just don't like her. But the way that he, like, So the Ravenels are basically like his kids and the Wallflower kids together.
Yeah.
And the way that you get to see him be like a father and be this very softer man than you ever thought he could be. And it's all because of his love for Evie. And I think that's one reason why I love her heroes so much, is because they're typical a-hole heroes. A lot of them are. But there's something about that transformative power of love that changes them. And it's not the heroine like pushing change on them. It's them wanting to do better for this woman. And I'm just like, I'm a complete sucker for that. And so I just loved it and thought it was fantastic. But I do understand how not everybody loves them, but I do.
I get the appeal. Like, I understand why people like it. Like, I don't have a problem with it's like, I don't think it's a bad book. It's just not a book like I was into. You know what I mean? It's not you, it's me situation. It's one of those. Sometimes you just have that with a book where it's like, I don't like it, but I get why people like it.
I feel like that's been my mood this whole year.
Okay, so I just watched a reading vlog, and you mentioned that it took you a whole week to read House of Sky and Breath.
Yes.
Same. A week, like 7 whole days. Like, I have never took that long to read a book. I don't care it's 800 pages. I would have read it in like 4.
I struggled with that book so much.
What?
I struggled with that book so much. So much of that book was slow.
God. Are we best friends right now? Like, I hit such a wall with that book where I was just like, you know what? I've read a lot of books by Sarah MacLean Sarah J. Maas at this point. Yeah. And one of them I didn't like. So it's like, her batting average is still pretty good. But this one, which is like, I could not suspend my disbelief.
Yes.
As so many things. Why do they have pizza? Why do they call it pizza? There's no Italy in this world. I'm not saying they can't have pizza. Like, it's not like the recipe's not hard to crack. It's dough, cheese, and sauce. They could have pizza, but why do they call it pizza? There's no Italy. Call it something else. Like I lost my shit, and that's what did it. Like, the pizza, that was the hardest thing to believe. I couldn't.
I love Sarah J. Maas. Like, I've been reading her for years. Like, her Throne of Glass series. Like, I freaking love it. Like all of her stuff. But like, that is the first book of hers that I have ever read where I have been bored for so long. Like, I'm just like, what is happening?
I could not get over things. And then, like, the things I couldn't get over just stood out so blatantly that, like, it just made everything else stupid. Yeah. Although I do like Mermaid Cop. I like Therian.
Oh, yeah.
Cop. Like, how fun is that to say? Hey, Mermaid Cop. Like, I love that. But, like,
even like the message delivering otters, I'm like, yeah, that's true. Yeah. I believe that.
I will believe a message carrying otter, but I don't believe you have pizza. Like, why would you call it pizza? It bothers me so much.
That's completely valid, honestly. Like,
I
ended up giving that book 5 stars, and it's 100%, I think, because I was so glad to be done with it.
Relief stars.
Yeah.
I gave it 3 because I'm like, it's fine. I'm just glad I'm done. I'm like, okay. I'm going to read the next one. Like, who am I kidding?
I know, right? Like, of course I'm going to read the next one, and I'll probably take me a week to read that too.
Oh my gosh. Like, Crescent City, I devoured, like, in 3 days.
Like,
I loved it intensely.
Yeah. And the way that this started, I didn't like. Yeah. With, like, the prologue in this one, I was like, this is going to be good. And then I was like, what happened? So
why even have that character be introduced if, like, nothing's done with them the whole time? The same thing with, like, the leader, crazy lady of the resistance.
Yes.
Like, why have her be a character? You got her perspective for, like, 2 pages, and then nothing's ever done with her. She's just there as, like, generic crazy lady. And it's like, what purpose does she serve? There's a lot of problems. We're not talking about that in this chat. But I was like, she had the same problems I did, probably.
Yeah, I did. I definitely did. I'm definitely having 5-star remorse. I'm like, I gotta drop that. That's not a 5-star read for me.
Yeah, I gave it 3 because I was like, you know what? It's fine.
Yeah.
I washed my hands of this.
Yeah. The ending did make up for a lot because I was like, anticipating that, and I was very excited for that. And I wasn't spoiled, but I was just like, that's got to be. And it did, but now I'm like, we gotta fix that rating. It's not a 5-star read.
I feel like Sarah J. Maas writing that last chapter was just like, yeah. They're gonna freak out. I love it. Like she was just like waiting. She was edging herself for this book to come out, just for her readers to freak out. It's just so much like reader service that it was like, oh girl, like don't get me wrong, I like it, but it's just like it's a little like obvious.
Oh yeah,
I don't
totally.
It
totally is, and I'm also like, I am here for it. I do not mind one bit.
Yeah, when you're right, Sarah J. Maas. Got it. I'm giving you this one. Okay, is it your turn or my turn? I forget.
I think it's your turn because we just did St. Vincent.
Well, those are all the books I picked, but I picked one to grow on, one I haven't read yet that I want to read. And it is When Beauty Tamed the Beast by Eloisa James.
I love that book so much.
Please tell me about it, because like I know I want to read it, but I haven't talked to anyone else who's read it. So please tell me.
I love that book so much. It was the first Eloisa James book that I had ever read, and it really has a lot of fun little like hints to the actual Disney Beauty and the Beast. But he is basically, I think he's like a surgeon or something, and he is also scarred, I think, from the war. But it's so funny because she's just like absolutely stunningly beautiful. And she ends up wearing this dress for some reason, like whoever makes her clothes it's like a new fashion to have like an empire waist or something like that. And so she goes to the ball and everyone assumes that she's pregnant. And so people are saying that she's ruined because of this dress that she's wearing. And so they like ship her off to the Duke, who is like, he lives on like an island where he is isolated. Nobody ever comes around him. And she is just so like plucky and friendly and wanting to be like, she's very witty. I love Eloisa James books because they're very like sharp and witty and very clever. And like the dialogue was just fantastic in that one. And it was just so good. Like I was completely charmed the whole time I read it. It was just a pure delight. I loved it so much. Nice. Have you read her before?
I've only read a series I didn't enjoy very much, which was like the Wild series. It was a recent series. Like I read that and I was like, this is so dull. It's like watching paint dry. And I really disliked it. So like that's what's been like the thing keeping me back. But a friend did send this to me, and I just realized right now it's a UK paperback. Yeah. Which is fun. But I do want to try something else by the author, because I think I've read like a couple things and I didn't like either of them. But like I want to read something else because I know this one's like out of a fan favorite as well.
That one, I was going to say that one's probably one of her most beloved, and I thought it was just completely charming. Like I loved it, and it was also very steamy and just a really good time. So I really liked it. I'm reading right now the arc of her new book that comes out this month. I think it's How to Be a Wallflower. And that one has the same type of just like really sharp wit, clever dialogue, and it's really fun. The heroine is an heiress to a toilet company. Like her father invented toilets in England. So it's pretty unique in that way.
Everyone needs one. Yeah. Stable income, no judgment. Get your toilet money. Yeah. Love it. So those are all my picks. I think you probably have a lot more for me. So give me some good ones.
Okay, so my oven timer is going off. Hold on. My son will turn it off. Okay.
Go get your oven timer. I just thought of another book I need to bring up, so go ahead.
So I do have, this was the other book that I wanted to mention. This is Mary Balogh. This is the last book in a series of like family members. This is Slightly Dangerous. So the whole series, I think there's like 6 books in the series, follows a sibling in this Bedouin family, each as they try to find marriage and love and all of that. And throughout the whole book, you see Wulfric, who is the Duke. Have you read this book before?
No, I haven't read anything by Mary Balogh yet.
So she's a really interesting author because, again, like I love like the classic historical romance authors where you know what you're going to get, like Tessa Dare type of thing, But I also I read so much historical that I really love finding an author that is like a little bit different. And Mary's books are definitely a little slower. They're a lot more character driven. They are sort of like if you're used to a really fast pace, it might be a little jarring to go to one of her books because they're just really lovely and beautiful. And they are steamy, but not like heavily steamy. But the thing that she does so well, I think, is just how she builds her characters and her family relationships. And this one was great. It's the hero. He's damaged. He's the Duke. He's the head of the family. He doesn't want to marry and have an heir. He wants his little brothers and sisters to do that. So he's basically had a mistress his whole life, and not his whole life, his adult life. And she recently passed away. And he realized when she passed away and when he was caring for her that he actually loved her. And he did not know that he did until she was gone. And so he's trying to fill that void, find another mistress, and he ends up falling in love with, or not falling in love with, he catches the eye, or she, anyway, a woman who he finds himself interested in is basically like not a governess, but she did some teaching, and she's sort of the joke of the ton, like nobody really thinks that she's that great. She kind of eschews like social norms, and she does things that ladies shouldn't typically do, but he can't stop thinking about her and just wants to have her. Meanwhile, she's like, I won't be your mistress, but maybe if you really work for it, I'll marry you. So it's a really good time. I think he is the epitome of like a starchy Duke who just is so like strict and stern, but this woman just undoes him. So this is a really like slower paced read, but it was so satisfying, and I thought it was great. So it was a good time for sure.
I like that. She's like, if you work for it, maybe I'll marry you.
Yeah. She was great. She was great. It was a good one.
Okay. Tell them about your next pick. I have to grab this one because it's a fantasy romance that I totally forgot about till right now. I'm going to grab it. I'll be right back.
So this is not a Duke, but I brought it anyways because it's a Lisa Kleypas book, and it's my favorite Lisa Kleypas book. And I really don't know why I'm talking about it because he's not a damaged Duke, but he is a damaged hero, emotionally damaged. And it's Dreaming of You. Have you read this one?
I haven't.
Have you read this? Okay. So it seems to be like people either are team St. Vincent, they love him, or they like Derek Craven. So Derek Craven is a self-made man. He owns this huge gambling den. He is a scoundrel, definitely a bit of a scoundrel. The heroine is a writer. She writes like mystery novels and also some like salacious novels. And so she is going to his gambling hell to interview him for research for her new book. When she gets there, she actually ends up saving his life and pulls this little tiny pocket pistol out and shooting this guy who is trying to kill him. And they just become ensnared in this relationship together, and it's just fantastic. Like, this hero is so very damaged, cannot even love, doesn't believe he can love, emotionally damaged in that way. But when they have a few interactions, she ends up leaving her spectacles at his place, and he pockets them and keeps them and just like touches them when he thinks about her. And I'm just like losing my head over that.
Sexy glasses?
Like he just wants to hold her glasses in his pocket because like he loves her.
I love that.
But he doesn't want to admit that he loves her. It's fantastic.
I just want to cuddle your glasses. I love it. Oh my gosh.
So like again, that's another one where I feel like people either love it or hate it because but I feel like that book does really well what Lisa does, where she shows a hero who is just like a mess. Like he's sort of pulling his professional life together, but his emotional life, like he doesn't know what to do with his feelings. And she like sort of ignites that desire in him to transform his life for her, which I just freaking love. So it was great.
You had me at glasses cuddling.
I will never forget that. I read the first time and I'm like, did I read that right? Like
I love that.
And
people don't know I wear glasses. Yeah. I don't need them for like close-up vision, so I don't wear them on camera or anything, but like cuddle my glasses, feel it.
Yeah. So mine till midnight, there was just a comment about that. It definitely was. It had some racist language in it, and I do believe that I'm not sure which version you read or listened to, but they're going through and making edits to get that out. So I'm not sure if that is in there or not, but I know that because he's Romany, the hero in that, and they definitely use some slurs for him.
Yeah. So. I mean, there's a lot. like you were talking about just reading Agatha Christie, and I'm like, oh boy,
Yeah.
there's a lot, like especially like
There.
Murder on the Orient Express. Like I left it kind of out of my drunk classics because I was drunk and not in any mental state to be discussing race theory.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like,
It's,
oh my gosh, it's like constant kind of.
yeah. It's really hard. I had heard that book was, and I was still like pretty shocked to read it in there. I was like, wow. But again, like, and it's tough because like I'm not excusing it at all, but I'm also like, I understand it was written in a much different time of the world,
Yeah.
and like that doesn't mean that it's okay and we don't have to enjoy it. And like
Yeah.
that's why like I still read those books, but I definitely try to make a point of saying, hey, this is in here, just so you know, like I don't know, it's tough to know what to do about those older books.
Yeah, it's like I get it. That's how they talk. It doesn't make it right,
Yeah,
even when it's happening. But it's just
absolutely.
like just the glaring problems of it. I don't know. Like people maybe in that time era, I would hope people in the time era were also like, oh, that's problematic.
For
But who
sure.
knows? But at least like I think it's okay to read it and acknowledge the problems.
Yeah.
But anyway, so this book I ran over to get because I forgot about it till right now. But fantasy lovers who want like a good damaged dukish character and you want some Beauty and the Beast action, can I recommend Entreat Me by Grace Draven? I forgot until we started talking about Beauty and the Beast, and I was like, oh shit!
That's so funny because
So
I was literally thinking of that book exactly when we were talking about it. Yeah.
nice. So this one definitely is fantasy first romance. It is Beauty and the Beast vibes. Basically, he is just grotesque and like fantasy grotesque. So he has like wood growing out of his body and horns and shit. Like he's like a monster. And then she's still into him anyway. And he's like, why? She's like, dude, I'm an undertaker. I've seen worse. Like that's her whole response. And like she's like, I kind of like who you are as a human though. And he's just like, nice. That's like the key factor here. And that was like honestly, I tabbed it like because there was some funny bits, and that was one of it. She's like, "Look, I'm an Undertaker. Like I've seen worse," and I was like, "Yes, that is the best." And it's been a few years since I've read it, but it is great if you want like a fantasy first kind of romance. Definitely a lot of magic involved, a lot of fantasy elements. Also, like Grace Draven kind of writes a lot of more sweet. I use the term sweet loosely. I think more like a friends to lover situation. She builds these relationships out of like a friendship and a mutual respect for each other. There's a lot of them. I don't know if you could count like the other series, like Radiance.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that counts because technically they're two different species. So it's not necessarily a scarred dude because he's probably like a hot, like part
true.
of that species. Like Chewbacca, I'm like, is Chewbacca like a hot Wookiee? Like I don't know. Like, do you think? Like, I think Chewbacca's probably like a hot Wookiee, but like as a human, I'm not attracted to him. But you get it,
Yeah.
you know? It's
Yeah.
like that. I'm just like, it's based on mutual respect and friendship, and I like that relationship base. So,
I think
anyway,
she does that
Fantasy
so
Lovers,
well. Yeah.
I have to recommend that one.
That one is so good. That is probably one of my favorite fantasy romance books that I've ever read. I just love it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, they're great. And they also have audiobook components, so audiobook fans, you're good. She has, I think, all of her books out on audio. They're available.
I think most of them are, yeah.
Yeah. And they're indie published too, and she still has them on audio. Queen.
She has a couple that were traditionally published.
Okay.
The Phoenix Unbound and the Dragon Unleashed.
Yeah, that one was. Yeah, this one I'm like, there ain't no.
Yeah, definitely.
There's no label of any publisher on this one. So anyway, you probably have a lot more cool ones. I'm out. Those are all the ones.
Those are all of the books that I brought to my kitchen because my library is over there. I have to be right here because of the internet, but
yeah.
I'm sure we could go on all day probably.
Probably. What are you reading right now?
I'm reading the Eloisa James arc, How to Be a Wallflower, which is really fun because it has characters from her My American Duchess book. Have you read that one?
I have that one, but I haven't read it yet.
So that's really fun because you get to see that couple in here and they're kind of like friends. So that's super fun. I'm really liking that. But that's not an audiobook. So the audiobook that I'm reading is a indie romance. It's called Carnal Urges by J.T. Geisinger, I think.
Yeah.
I just barely started it, so I'm not sure. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I am liking it so far. It's a darker romance, like a mafia romance. I got that recommendation from Jen from the Book Refuge. So
yeah, Jen does like her dark romance. Like I couldn't get into it. I've tried. I don't. It's not my jam.
It has to be a very specific type for me. Like there are a couple of authors that I really really love who do dark romance, but most of it is a no for me too. So
yeah. So, do you have any like fantasy romance audiobook recommendations? Like obviously Grace Draven. A lot of books. Radiance is really good as well. That's another one. I'm not going to get it back up again, but it's also by Grace Draven. Entreat is a good fantasy romance. They're they're spicy, but like I feel like they're kind of mild spicy.
yeah, I would say so too. I think she's probably who I would recommend for a beginner fantasy romance. But if I guess it depends on where you're coming from. Like if you really love a a rich fantasy world like that is sort of maybe not rich in like magic, but is like richly imaginative. Like if you're used to reading sort of brutal fantasies, then I would recommend A Heart of Blood and Ashes by Milla Vane. Have you read that?
Yes, there's a bloody handy.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what I
there
remember
is.
out of it. Bloody handy. Like that one's spicy. I'm gonna say it's
It
spicy.
is. Yeah, but I feel like that one has such a an interesting like fantasy world setup and like political aspect of it too that it's extremely spicy, and I love the romance in there. But I think that that one, if you like fantasy, I think that would hit for you too.
No.
I don't know
I
that I
like a
would say that's for beginners, but
yeah. That might be a bit advanced studies because that's
yeah.
bloody handy. I feel is advanced studies. But it is a very popular choice. Like I've read that one. I think A Promise of Fire by Amanda Boucher.
Oh yeah, that's a really
That's a
good one.
fun one. It's a trilogy, so you can get through them pretty quickly. And that one's really fun. It's a lot of it's kind of loosely based around the Greek gods a little bit. Like I know Prometheus plays a part in it eventually. Like the Prometheus, what? And it's a lot of like the gods and goddesses are involved, and there's a lot of magic in this world and stuff. So I think that one's probably really good too.
Yeah,
Also takes a little bit to become spicy, so I would say like it's probably a medium spicy book.
yeah.
Yeah, fantasy romance. I feel like it's always been around, but like it gets kind of taken over by contemporary fantasy
Yeah,
a bit more, which is like former. I stopped calling it urban fantasy. I call it contemporary fantasy now.
that's
So
good. That's a good way to describe it, honestly.
yeah, I just don't like the connotation that gives. So yeah, it's contemporary fantasy,
Hmm.
and there's a lot of those, and I think it kind of gets overrun. But like, if you want a fantasy romance, it's a little different than that, you know.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of them. I just haven't read enough of them.
Yeah. Um, Actually, that one doesn't have an audio. They were asking specifically for audio, huh? For fantasy romance.
Oh, which one?
That comment you shared. Oh, I was just talking
Oh,
about Little Fire by Holly Mandy. Have you read that one?
oh, I haven't read that one. I'm like the other ones we talked about do have audio
Yeah,
components.
I'm looking through my list.
Although, yes, Hard Blood and Ashes. There was a lot of talk about tongues. He grabs her tongue at one point. There's a lot of tongue stuff.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
That is a thing that happens in the book. You're not wrong.
I'm going through my list to see if I can find any other.
So I know like the Wallflower Devil in Winter is part of this Wallflower series. So that's part of the Ravenel series. I know they're related. Those two series are related.
Yeah, Devil in Winter is part of the Wallflower series. Yeah.
So I know that one's been like popular. What was, I think the second book of it is Marrying Winterborn.
That's the Ravenels. Yeah.
Yeah. I read the first book of the Ravenel series, and I didn't like that one either.
I didn't like that one either.
Okay.
And I love Lisa Kleypas, and that is one of my least favorite books of hers that I've ever read.
Cold-Hearted Rake. I hated it. Oh my gosh. I wanted to cause bodily harm to that guy.
I did not like that guy one bit.
And then I was like, Marrying Winterborn is the second. I hated Winterborn too. He's awful. And he's getting a redemption. He sucks butt. Like, I don't like him at all. It's like, I couldn't go on with the series. So I hated him.
The third book, like, I was the same way. I was like, I love Marrying Winterborn, but without I feel like Marrying Winterborn isn't good unless you read Cold-Hearted Rake, because their story is so much in that book, you know? So I had very low expectations for the next book in the series, which I think is Devil in Spring, which has St. Vincent's kids.
I have a kid of someone from another series in this one.
Yeah. So, and I loved that one. The hero was very sweet. The heroine is, she has, I can't think of the word. It's not on page that she has autism, but she has,
she's on the spectrum.
Yes, the spectrum. Thank you. I literally could not think of the word. And she wants to design board games, which I thought was so unique and so fun.
Oh, yeah.
Their romance was really, really sweet. I liked it a lot. So, yeah. And then, like, Chasing Cassandra is in that series, which I think is the last book.
Yeah.
She's a plus-size heroine, and that's one of Lisa's best books ever. It's fantastic. Yeah. But the cover doesn't reflect that, which is unfortunate.
There's a lot of times the covers don't reflect plus-size heroines. Yeah. Or you're like, this is supposed to be a plus-size heroine? This is just someone who maybe is just a little big?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's like... There are some authors who are very body positive. Olivia Dade. Like, did you read Spoiler? You read Spoiler Alert or All the Fields?
I started All the Fields and I DNF'd it.
It's not good. You're not missing nothing.
I just couldn't get into it.
Remember how much they talked about leggings in Spoiler Alert? There's no legging. I read that whole damn book and no one got legged once.
I do remember hearing the uproar about that. Like, people were disappointed. Yeah.
They talked about it happening once and it would happen off page. It's like, oh yeah, and that one time it happened. And I was like, no, you can't be like this. Reader blue balls. Like, oh my gosh, just put it. Why make it a big deal? It's like Chekhov's gun, you know? It's supposed to like you put the gun by the end of the book.
Totally.
But it's Chekhov's strap on. Woo! Okay. Remember how I had wine left at the beginning of this video?
It's all gone now.
There's like a splash at the bottom of there. So I'm having a good time. Saturday. Let's see. Let's go back to the comments. I haven't been putting enough up. Let's see if anyone's having some fun. If you guys want any particular recommendations, now is the time to ask. Or if you want something in particular for the next wine chat, which I feel like is probably going to be in April. I don't have any more planned for March, but we'll see. I do have Patreon and I'm going to be doing book club. So that will be kind of a low-key wine chat as well. So, you know, if you want to come drink with me, hang out, good times. Oh yes, I just want to put this back up again. A Lady for a Duke by Alexis Hall is a trans woman heroine. Love that. Beauty and the Beast. Yeah, so Beauty and the Beast, Hades, Persephone, they're very similar kind of base storylines. Like, I feel like I would prefer Beauty and the Beast to Hades, Persephone, but like they're kind of cousins, I would say.
That's a good way to put it. Definitely cousins. Yeah.
Like Neon Gods I liked actually, but I liked Electric Idol even better.
I did too. I agree with you on that. I loved Electric Idol.
I loved
That's a
it.
plus size heroine too. Yeah, but not in
That's his
historical.
heroine.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's also just like, oh no, you messed up. You showed me human kindness. I'm your problem now.
Yeah.
Loved. I do like how they gave Persephone a lot of agency in Electric Gods though. So there's that. I
I
feel like if
agree.
the heroine has agency, I can like, forget a multitude of sins.
I agree with you for sure. Yeah.
So yes, Bridgerton is very fun. I am excited for season 2, mainly because I think it's like a fantasy wonderland more so than they're trying to make a point about society. But there is that whole discourse about the show and like recasting stereotypically white centered roles with just a person of color doesn't necessarily equal representation. It just equals you're putting someone with brown skin in a character who's white.
Yeah.
So like I get the discourse there. Like, am I still gonna watch it? Probably, because it's fun and there's a dog, there's a corgi, but
Very excited for that corgi.
I'm so excited. And like I do love Kate and I think she's gonna be an amazing Kate, but I do understand the discourse. I think it is worth a conversation. I think what they're going for with the show is a fantasy wonderland where racism just doesn't exist, which, isn't the real world, but it's a storytelling question. Should you put in the difficult struggles that someone of, a brown skin tone would have in that time period or not?
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh yeah, we talked to Charles for a second. I'm going back to the beginning of all of his comments. Let's see. You were talking about Royal Conquest earlier, Miss Stacy Reid.
Yes. I loved it.
I haven't read that one yet.
And
Could
it's
you
a really
refresh my
short one.
memory? Refresh my memory. What was that one about again?
So he is like a Russian horse master, and she has recently been like spurned from her fiance who she was in love with, and so she's obviously not going to love anybody ever again, but she's also interested in horses, so they meet in the stables one night and they have this very electric connection, but they fall in love. She is going to marry not a title, like she's determined she's not going to marry a title because of what her fiance put her through. And so he is a Russian prince, but he never tells her that until the very end. So it's very angsty. He has some emotional trauma with it's not specifically like sex work that he was involved in, but it's around that. So he has some intimacy issues where he's not, where he's kind of struggling with things. But it was fantastic. I really, really loved it. And there's an audio for it too. So it's great.
I have to read more Stacy Reid. I haven't read a lot of the back releases that I should. You know what? Scarred on the Inside does count for Scarred Duke. Like the damaged Duke is kind of more just a suggestion than a guideline at this point. We're just like, Marquess, Viscount, whatever.
Yeah. Some type of daddy trauma where he's determined not to have an heir, right?
Also, yeah, they banged in a mummy tomb. Can we forget that we talked about Mr. Impossible by Loretta Chase?
I kind of did forget that, yeah.
They literally banged in a mummy tomb. Not even joking. It happened, and I still don't know how it happened. And they were talking about how it smelled like mummies, and they're like, "Oh wow, this is gross." They still banged it out. Don't know how they did it.
Wild.
Zini is so good. It is fun. They were talking about getting the devices needed for legging, and they were about to go to Home Depot. And he's like, "Well, we can't get them at Home Depot." Who knows? Let's see. We talked about Sarah MacLean, what books this kind of start out with. ACOTAR trilogy. Yeah. You know what? I think ACOTAR, A Court of Thorns and Roses, is probably the least strong book of that series. I said what I said.
I think that's very true. Yeah, for sure.
I wasn't so into it. I read the rest of it, and now I'm like, I'm into it. I like the world. I like all the characters. I'm like, I'm going to read it. But like, Agatar was like, for me.
See, and that's like I still love that book. Like I just had a great time reading it, but like I can still look at it and see like it's all the flaws, you know. But so it's like it's one of those books for me that I'm like I loved it, but I know it's not good, you know.
There's a lot of things in life like that. I know this
Yeah.
isn't good, but I love it anyway.
Yep. Yep.
Let's see. Latvia. Oh my goodness. Leanna from Leanna's Library is from Latvia. Her first language was Latvian, and I tried to have her teach me some, but I don't remember any of it. I'm a terrible friend. So, this is a fun fact. Hello from Latvia. I love that. I have so many subscribers from all over the globe, and I think that's one of my favorite parts of YouTube.
That's so cool. I love that.
Is that I get to talk to so many people from all these different countries and stuff. It's so cool. I think we brought this one up earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, we brought that one up earlier. Okay. True.
Yeah.
You know, like Oscar Wilde, like you're like, oh, he's queer, like he's gonna be accepting. I'm like, incredibly anti-Semitic. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, the portrait of Dorian Gray. I did it for Drunk Classics, and I was like, it's a lot.
I haven't read that book in years, but I remember loving it. But
yeah,
it's been a really long time.
there's a lot of craziness in that book where it's very queer, but like for the time period, I think they think people would be like, oh, they're friends, and I'm like, are they? Are they secret boyfriends? I don't know, but he's just like, hey, scientist bro, I used to bang you. You need to come science away a body for me. Like, the whole book is insane. Let's see. Talk about fantasy romance audiobooks. Wallflower series we talked about a little bit. Chekhov strap on. What brand of wine? I mentioned this at the beginning of the video, but I'm having this one. This is a Vaqueras. It's from the Rhone Valley in France. It's a very particular area. It's sort of like Côte de Rhone, except this one doesn't have any Syrah in it. So it's just Grenache and Mourvedre. But it's fun. I'm having a good time with it. I feel like it's better as time progresses. Straight out the bottle, it takes a little bit. You want some air to get in here. Give it 30 minutes and it opens up nicely. It's it definitely has a lot of black fruit. It has a lot of blackberry. It has cassis. It has black plum flavors on the nose. There's like a little tone of like potting soil. It depends if you like the smell or not, but it has like a little like earthy kind of tone to it. The palate, I kind of get the same flavors. It has a bit of like a smoky quality to it that I'm into. It's interesting. I have my sommelier certification, so I do that weird sucking thing when I taste wines now. But it's fun. You know, it's kind of a stereotypical Côte de Rhone, except it doesn't have any Syrah in it. So I feel like it's a bit smoother because Syrah is so tannic naturally. It has a lot of that like really bitter, drying out your mouth flavor. This one, it has like a good tannin structure, but it's a little softer. So I think if you want something a bit softer without that bitter taste, it might be worth trying out. The discourse about that, about Bridgerton, there's a lot to be said about it. I don't know if I'm a bad person for still wanting to watch it, but maybe I'm just a bad person. I am excited about it still. You know,
I am too. Yeah.
It's fun. It's just fun, you know. Denmark, shut up. Oh my gosh. I love that. People all over the world. Let's see. Red by Candle. I'm not sure who that is, but hi, Red by Candle. I think that's maybe another YouTuber, another bookstagram. I'm not sure, but I'm into it. Middle Earth? What? Hobbits? or something else that lives in Middle Earth. There's a lot of races that live in Middle Earth. Final thoughts, Crystal? Do you have any other recommendations or books that you're excited about coming out in the near future?
Oh goodness. I I let's see. Books I'm
We talked
excited.
about Heartbreaker by Sarah MacLean. We're both excited for that one.
Very excited about that one for sure. And also, Diana Quincy has a book coming out at the end of this month.
Read her.
Yeah, so she is. I'm not sure if she is, but I know her books have like Middle Eastern representation in them. Her historicals do.
Yes, I heard about that. Like there was like I think the main character was Armenian, I believe, or something like that.
This is the third book in that series coming out at the end of the month, and
I have the first book. I don't have the second two, but I want to read the first book.
Yeah, the first book was a lot of fun. Yeah, I really liked that one a lot. So I'm excited about that one. It's called How the Marquess Makes His Move, which is going to be good. I'm just going to go through the books that I know that I want to read that I'm excited about. I'm very excited about Nobody's Princess by Erica Ridley. Have you heard about that one?
I have heard about that one. I read The Perks of Loving a Wallflower.
Yes.
I want to read The Duke Heist. Erica Ridley was nice enough to send me The Perks of Loving a Wallflower, so that was very nice.
Too, and I loved that book. That book was so good. I liked The Duke Heist. It wasn't like my favorite, but I liked it. So I'm very, very excited about Nobody's Princess. The cover is so stunning. You probably can't see it on my little phone, but it's like
I remember seeing it on Instagram when it came out. I was excited about it.
It's so gorgeous. That one comes out, I think, in July, so we have a little bit to go from there. I'm very excited about Joanna Shoup's new one, The Bride Goes Rogue. That one comes out in May. This is her new series. This is book 3 in it. I didn't like the first book in the series.
I don't think I did either. What was it called? What was it called?
The Heiress Hunt, I think. The Heiress Hunt.
I didn't like it either. Okay, I feel better. I was like, I remember I read the first book of this new series, and I was like,
yeah, I didn't like it at all. So I was so hesitant for the second book.
Right?
Yeah, tennis. But the second book was fabulous. Have you read that one? It's
I didn't like the first one, so I haven't continued on.
I don't blame you because I also didn't like the first one, and I cannot remember what the title of the second one is. The Lady Gets Lucky. So this one is a seduction lesson. She is trying to get out from underneath her mother. Yeah, The Lady Gets Lucky. It was so good. Even if you didn't like the first one, you got to read that one because it was fantastic. So that one is all about like lessons in seduction. So I'm very excited for her new one, The Bride Goes Rogue. Her covers are still clinch covers and they're fantastic.
I love a clinch cover.
Oh, gosh, me too. Wow. So excited about that one. Those are my anticipated historicals other than the Sarah MacLean one. I'm still really excited for Bet on It by Jodie Slaughter. That's a contemporary romance.
Mm-hmm.
That one comes out in July.
I have Always Be My Duchess by Amalie Howard.
When does that one come out? That one's out. July? Okay. That one will be good.
July 12th. I wrote down all the books I have coming out the second half of the year because I was thinking about doing my video soon enough. So I have that, and I have Heartbreaker, Ruby Fever by Alona Andrews, contemporary.
Oh, yeah. I haven't gotten into that series yet, but I very much want to. I've started that. So that one is, what's the first book in that series?
Burn for Me.
Yeah, I have that one on audio. I just haven't. I've started it, but I kind of like stopped, but I want to go back to it because It's
really good. There's the Kate Daniels series, but that's like 10, 11 or more books or spin-offs as well. So if you just want to start with like a trilogy, like 1, 2, 3, you're done with that trilogy, and then there's like a spin-off trilogy. The Hidden Legacy series might be the one for you. Also super cool. Loved it. There's like kind of a psycho guy hero in it. He's known as the Scourge of Mexico, and Mad Rogan is his name. Like, you know, yeah, he's kind of like a bad boy extraordinaire, but like kind of like sweet in his own way. I love that. So like, if you read it, tell me how you like it, because I'm kind of low key obsessed with it.
I know a lot of people are, so I'm excited for that one. It was supposed to get finished last year, but I just didn't.
Yeah, the second, basically there's 3 Baylor sisters. There's Nevada and Catalina, and then the other one I can't remember right now because I've been drinking. So the second trilogy is Catalina's story, and Catalina is like, I thought Nevada was great, but like Catalina has surpassed Nevada for me. Like, she is so cool. She's like, you know, if there's like a war going on, I feel like Nevada is going to be on the front line saving the day. Catalina is the general in the back who made the battle plan.
I love it.
She is terrifying about how like far ahead she is from everybody, like in her planning and steps and stuff. Like, Catalina is like dope. Because she's so mild mannered in the first trilogy, you're like, oh, Catalina, but you're like, no, Catalina is dope. I love her trilogy. And then I think might be something else with, is your mail here?
I think that's my family coming home.
Okay. But yeah, the third, there's another sister, and maybe she'll have her own kind of book series. I'm not sure, but yeah, Catalina, she grows on you. She's dope.
I love series like that have like many books in them and so many different story arcs. Like, I love that. So I know that I'm going to love it. It's just like, I'm also worried about like how the first one's going to hit for me, you know, because sometimes first books in a series are tough. But
I will tell you, it's not spicy yet. It's like a slow burn spiciness. Like, you try it at first and you're like, oh, this tastes good. And you're like, oh no, it's burning now. It takes a minute. Like, I really enjoyed it. The second book has spice. The first book is just like a sprinkle.
Yeah.
So a sprinkle of spice at the end. But like, I loved it so much. I think it's really good. Like, if I think about good contemporary fantasy, like, I recommend Alona Andrews like immediately.
Mm-hmm.
I think and it's a husband-wife team, and I think they're doing it great.
I knew that, which I think is incredible. And they don't, like, English is their second language, isn't that right? Did I?
For her, it is, I believe. I don't think for him. I think I met them once, and she had an accent, but he did not have. I mean, he has an American accent. I mean, everyone has an accent. Just depends where you're from.
Yeah.
But yeah, she is. I forget where she's from, but yeah. And also Bridgerton. It's, you know, a lot of things are problematic. I'm so excited about it. There's a dog.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping for too. I'm hoping the good elements outweigh the bad elements, or elements that, you know, are worth having a conversation about. And I think that's also important for the show, you know, have a conversation about it and also enjoy all of the historical romance rom-com tropes and romps and fun times.
Yeah.
Someone else is very excited about Nobody's Princess.
Yeah.
I am excited. It's like a group of ragtag siblings getting through stuff. Step backs, yeah. Romance community also loves step backs.
We do.
Oh, where's that candle? We brought them up earlier in a comment. Where's the candle?
I wish so badly they would bring them back. It would be amazing.
Yeah,
I mean, they haven't been gone for that long either.
But like, now they have, like, you know, like, they put all the smut on the cover and they're like, oh, here's like a coastline. But there's a lot of setbacks. I mean, like, you know, golden era romance is probably the era of like smutty tabs, setbacks, smutty tabs, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so we're kind of coming up on that hour and a half mark. I think I'm going to start wrapping it up. If you have any final questions, please let us know in the comments. Yeah, or any other future wine chat topic ideas. We had one for plus size heroines / heroes, plus size characters. I'm going to say I'm not going to be like just restricting it to female characters, and maybe also with male characters, or maybe even non-binary characters. I'm trying to be less gendered in my speech because I realize I don't know people and why gender them before I need to.
That's very good advice for sure. Yeah. I definitely need to do a better job of that too.
It's difficult because we live in a very binary society, and it's just kind of when we're in children to say male or female for everything, but not everyone is male and female, and they is kind of gender neutral. So I've been trying my best to use more they pronouns when possible. But, I try my best, but, I think also part of the conversation is also, sometimes you make mistakes and you just have to apologize and move on.
Very true.
So yeah, I think we kind of talked about a lot of Scarred Dukes today. I had so much fun with you, Crystal.
It was so fun. Thanks so much for having me. This was great.
Yeah, I was so excited. I was like, oh, Crystal wants to talk to me on a live chat. I was very excited when you said yes.
It was a ton of fun. I'm so glad you asked me.
Don't worry, my dog is also enormous and barks all the time.
All the time.
So yes, I have so many. Thank you. I accidentally used the wrong gender terms for you, and I apologize, but I will use they them going forward. It is. Just knowing from friends I've had who identify as non-binary or trans, I am trying my best to use less gendered speech in general, because I feel like it's, you can't offend anybody with they them.
Yeah, true.
Crystal, you have excellent recommendations. There's some of them I haven't read yet either, and you have fantastic videos. If you want really, really great romance recommendations, like I loved your wallflowers and rakes recommendations. Loved it intensely. I love that trope. So it was like, yes. And I was like, you like Damaged Dukes and Diet Coke. And I was like, you are the girl I have on the show.
Thank you so much. It's a ton of fun.
I appreciate it. Thank you for coming on. Again, wrapping up at the end, tell everybody where to find you and all your apps, etc.
You can find me on pretty much every social, like TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, under Crystal's Bookish Life. And you should just, if you search for me, I'm sure I'll come up. I'm on Goodreads too. I always rate every book that I read over there. So
yeah. Yay. Thank you so much for joining me. This was so fun. I got so many great recommendations out of you.
From you too.
After the show, I will put in down below in the description, I will put in all the books we talked about. So in case you guys want to go find them for yourself, you'll have access to all the titles we recommended. And yeah, final thoughts, everybody who got to get in the comments, put them in. Otherwise, I'm going to start ending this broadcast. It's coming. Again, thank you so much for joining me today. I had so much fun. Again, thank you, Beth. Beth is the best. Crystal does rock. You're 100% correct.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Read my candle. I love that. I found out about you in a comment. I'm going to look at your channel.
Yeah.
Yay. Thank you, guys. Yeah. And come back in April. I'm going to do some more live shows. It's going to be a good time. Who knows? Maybe Crystal will come back in a future episode.
I'd be happy to.
I have some great ideas coming in the future, but I'll see you guys again in April. All right. Thank you all for coming. I had such a good time, and I will see you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye.